Hello, my name is Tony. Back in the early 70s, BBC Two hosted a groundbreaking music show. The Old Grey Whistle Test was a phenomenon when I was a school kid. I'd stay up late to watch it due to a wonderful lack of parental control. And next day in the open prison that masqueraded as a comprehensive school, I and similar-minded friends of similarly cavalier parents would discuss the musical wonders experienced. The Old Grey Whistle Test, you see, wasn't a standard pop music show. Oh no, it was something else entirely. It showcased a lot of music you wouldn't normally get to hear on radio or TV. Bands and artists played in the studio, miming to recordings they'd made live earlier that day. Why not just play live for crying out loud? But hey, it was the BBC, so don't expect sense or logic. Some were famous, like The Who, David Bowie, Elton John, and some not so much, like Lindisfarne, Brinsley Schwarz, and Man. It often used random videos as the backgrounds for certain tracks from Pink Floyd and obscure US acts with names like Hot Tuna, or were they from Canada? Originally it was fronted by a balding hippie with buck teeth known as Whispering Bob Harris. A lot of what was on offer was uninspiring shit, but occasionally something altogether different and mind-blowing would turn up, like Alice Cooper doing 18 and ripping his Wonder Woman t-shirt. Blondie with I'm Always Touched by Your Presence Dear. Debbie Harry was the bomb. And a grainy video for some unclassifiable thing announced as Meatloaf. It featured motorbikes and a long pounding squealing rock track laden with loud operatic vocals that sounded like a prelude to the apocalypse. The track was Bat Out of Hell. The following week or so Meatloaf was in the studio. Imagine a 1960s B-grade sci-fi movie in which a mad scientist performs experiments on a big greasy triple quarter-pounder cheeseburger and gives it human form and the brain of an amphetamine-fueled gorilla. That's what Meatloaf looked like. He was doing Paradise by the Dashboard Light with Carla DeVito. Carla DeVito was lithe, statuesque, sexy, gorgeous, and she snogged the human cheeseburger during the song. That certainly sold a short fat zero like me. So impressed was I rushed out to get the album. Misremembering what I wanted, I frantically asked the record store salesgirl for Meat Out of Hell by Batloaf. She knew what I meant. Still, she fucking sniggered and gave me a look of superior withering pity. The sneering, piss-taking cow. Once I got the thing home after 2 or 3 plays, I was disappointed to find a lot of it felt overlong, draggy and boring, and its overwrought, yowling, bombastic production and construction started to grate on me. One of the songs that bored me rigid was called 2 Out of 3 Ain't Bad. If you're wondering where this is going, I'll tell you. In the early 70s, Burt Lancaster made 3 westerns, 2 of which, Michael Winner's Lawman and Robert Aldrich's Ulzana's Raid, were stone-cold classics. The other, well, it wasn't quite up to the same standard. It had a lot of potential, great concept, solid literary basis, but somehow, for some reason, didn't cut the mustard in quite the same way. Valdez Is Coming is a bit like Eastwood's Joe Kidd. Had all the makings of something truly special, yet failed to actually make it so. Still, like Joe Kidd, I rate it all the same, and it continues to figure in my return view preferences. It's more than worthy of another look, and although the Meatloaf song title might apply to it, it's a better film than 2 Out of 3 Ain't Bad is a song. Just to let you know, if you sometimes wonder what the fuck's wrong with me, don't worry, so do I. You're not alone. Valdez is based on an Elmore Leonard novel, so that's an instant plus point. However, he had nothing to do with the film, the screenplay being written by Roland Kibbe and David Rayfield. Kibbe was a TV hack and later co-wrote and co-directed the underrated Burt Lancaster thriller The Midnight Man in 1974. Rayfield would go on to co-script 3 Days of the Condor. The essence of the film therefore had some definite appeal, and the synopsis I'm about to provide is likely to whet the appetite of fans of Burt Lancaster, westerns, and chase-kill action movies. But it's the subsequent analysis that will hopefully help determine whether this is something you want to see or not, if you haven't already seen it, because there are a few issues here and there. So, saddle up and let's go. Bob Valdez, Burt Lancaster, is a constable policing the Mexican Quarter in some shithole of a town way out west, possibly somewhere near the border with Mexico. For the most part, he rides shotgun on stagecoaches. Arriving on the outskirts by coach, he finds local entrepreneur, landowner and arms dealer Frank Tanner, John Cypher, with his men. They're shooting holes in a shack. It appears that inside is a black man and his pregnant Indian wife. Tanner alleges that the black man is the murderer of a friend of his. Tanner's woman turns up in a buggy. She is gay Erin Susan Clark, the widow of Tanner's murdered friend. She's now Tanner's significant other. I put that tactfully, didn't I? I was going to say she's now fucking Tanner instead, but I thought I'd be a bit less crude and more mindful about my turn of phrase. Oh darn, have I ruined it, do you think? It becomes almost immediately apparent that the townspeople Tanner and most of his men, a lot of whom are Mexican ironically, are the most culturally intolerant, bigoted, racist, supremacist assholes this side of a combined Ku Klux Klan and neo-Nazi mass Adolf Hitler remembrance jamboree in an anti-minority conference centre in Qatar. To be blunt, they're not nice people. Not to put too fine a point on it, their ultimate aim is to kill the N-word. Valdez offers to intervene in the absence of the sheriff, but Tanner treats him with disgusted contempt and dismisses him. When the pregnant Indian woman leaves the hut to fetch water from a stream, Tanner orders his sniper goon, Davis, Richard Jordan, to scare her with his rifle fire. Davis, with sadistic glee, fires close to the woman, who doesn't react. He gets more and more frustrated the more she ignores his bullets, to the point where he recklessly shoots and holds the bucket of water she's carrying, which is the final straw for Valdez. Valdez makes his way to the hut to talk to the anonymous black guy. He opens the door and tells Valdez he's killed no one. Davis fires a shot and misses, which causes the black guy to try and shoot Valdez. Valdez has no other choice than to take the guy out with his shotgun. On viewing the corpse, Tanner casually announces he was mistaken. He wasn't the guy. Oh well, never mind. Just one more dead N-word, back to business. The event is a catalyst for the rest of the narrative. Valdez feels the man's widow should be compensated for his death. He canvasses the town big cheeses who agree to contribute $100 for the woman, providing Tanner matches the amount. Valdez approaches Tanner, who refuses. Later, Valdez rides out to Tanner's place to try and convince him. Enraged that Valdez has the temerity to persist, Tanner has him beaten and tied to a wooden cross by his henchman El Segundo, Barton Heyman. He is hounded out into the desert with a cross on his back. Valdez manages to break the cross between two trees, which results in the splintered poles driving themselves into his flesh, wounding him severely. He is found by the obnoxious Davis and passes out. When he comes round, he is being nursed back to health in the home of his friend Diego, Frank Silvera. Apparently, he crawled there. If you don't already know, you've probably guessed. Tanner has picked a fight with the wrong guy. Turns out, and who would have known, Valdez was a professional soldier, a sharpshooter and hunter of Apache in the US Cavalry, and Tanner is going to be made to pay $100 whether he likes it or not. Naturally, he isn't going to like it. Valdez confronts one of Tanner's Mexican minions, fatally wounds him with a shotgun blast, puts him on his horse and sends him back to Tanner with a message.
Write to Senor Tanner and tell him Valdez is coming.
Valdez ends up abducting gay Erin, dragging her off into the mountains as his hostage, with Tanner and his small army of men in hot pursuit, which sets the scene for a chase action thriller in which Valdez uses hit-and-run guerrilla tactics to take out Tanner's men and snipes them from a distance with his Sharps rifle. Still, they manage to close in, leading to a final concluding confrontation on a snowy mountain slope. From that, it all sounds great, doesn't it? Who wouldn't want to see a film like this? Well, let me tell you, pilgrims, it's not all beer and Skittles. Originally, the idea was for Lancaster to play Tanner and Marlon Brando to play Valdez. Some food for thought there. When that didn't happen, Lancaster went and made Airport instead. The project picked up again with a guy called Edwin Sherin selected to direct. It was his debut feature film after a career directing Broadway stage plays. He would make one more movie before embarking on a long career producing and directing US TV shows. Films weren't really his medium, it appears, which may go some way to explaining why even though Valdez is a lean 90 minutes, it's slow and languid in places, and sometimes almost static. The pacing is not as fast and sure-footed as it should be. Performance-wise and in terms of casting, Burt Lancaster blacking or browning up to play a Mexican character is a bit of a mistake. As an actor, he had natural charisma and competence by the bucket explode, and he's the best thing in it. But he's so, well, for want of a more appropriate word, white, and a monolithic icon of established American screen culture. It's just not convincing. Added to this is the strange impression that his skin tone lightens as the film proceeds. He starts off very dark and swarthy, but as he springs into action begins to look distinctly paler and more Americanized. It's just weird. I've considered if maybe it was intentional, a metaphorical way of depicting his transition from servile, cowed, almost groveling Mexican puppet to empowered, driven and assertive man of action. Probably not the case, but it always struck me as odd. He'd played ethnic characters previously, in Aldrich's Apache for instance, but here it feels more tangibly off-kilter. Barton Heyman, another white guy playing a Mexican, also seems to get whiter as the film moves forward and he comes to respect Valdez and his military history. What the hell is going on? Is the message that the closer people get to doing the right thing, the whiter they look? Did the makeup girl have some sort of neurological impairment? It's a mystery to me. Susan Clark is classically attractive in a visual aesthetic sense and gives a nicely composed performance as a woman who has swapped one misogynistic partner for another, which is either a case of poor judgment or bad luck. She's harbouring a secret though. The rumours that Tanner killed her husband so he could have her for himself are not strictly true. The real killer of her former spouse lives much closer to home. John Cypher in his first film appearance makes a suitably repellent and cowardly villain, and nothing would have given me greater pleasure than to see him expire in a hail of lead. That doesn't happen though, at least not that we get to see. Rest assured, you will not like this guy. He has absolutely no redeeming features. By the time Valdez Is Coming was made, we'd had spaghetti westerns, The Wild Bunch and Soldier Blue, so more explicit on-screen violence and in-your-face action sequences of increased visceral power were far more acceptable and even anticipated. Valdez fudges it by being a largely bloodless affair. There is action and killing, sure, but it's orchestrated in a bland and sanitized way. If the expectation is for something like Chateau's Land, that sort of dynamic and electrifying savagery, or the devastating impact of The Wild Bunch, you will be disappointed. Valdez is very blood-shy. In the end, it all sort of fizzles out. Tanner and his goons catch up with Valdez and Gay Erin on a snowy mountain slope. Tanner orders his men to shoot Valdez, but none will. Valdez invites Tanner to shoot him, but Tanner is afraid to draw down, knowing that Valdez will likely be way faster and kill him. Tanner spits,
I should have killed you 3 days ago.
Valdez replies,
Or paid you $100.
and the film ends abruptly on that note in a frozen tableau. The score by Charles Gross is mundane and unmemorable, but doesn't intrude or jar. Gabor Pagani's cinematography captures the decent locations with efficiency, rather than with style and passion. It's a sonic and visual combination of so-so elements that function adequately without going crazy to enhance and impress. The bottom line is, I watch Valdez Is Coming more for my imaginings of the film it could have been rather than the film it is. The story, a lot of the dialogue, its depictions of racism, misogyny and villainy, the sometimes thoughtful characterizations, the fine cast, and the core idea of it are all stellar. It's just that the will, skill and capability to get all those elements to coalesce into a pulsating, action-packed and violently entertaining pursuit western that engaged the audiences at the time seemed to be missing. It's not a bad film, but it's middle tier. You might even enjoy it like I did, but be aware it seems resolutely contented to underachieve. Meatloaf died in 2022. Although to date no official cause of death has been made public, he had chronic asthma, a rare heart condition and COVID. A fervent anti-vaxxer, he made the statement, "I'd rather die a free man than take that vaccine." Whichever way it cuts seems being a dick can be the death of you, which is a personal cause for concern for me and gives me pause to reflect on my own dickishness. Although not being completely stupid, I grabbed every vaccine going, and I wonder if I should maybe somehow change my attitude. Then I think, nah. Because although we know that Meatloaf had COVID, we know that Meatloaf is dead, we don't know if it was COVID that killed him. And like the song says, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Probably did kill him though. Thanks for your time and attention. I would like to express sincere gratitude for both. If you want to, hit like, dislike, post a comment and or subscribe. If you want to sign up to my Patreon page and receive new content earlier and support this channel into the bargain, be my guest. There will be a link kicking about somewhere, probably in the description. Most new content will land there first. I will be back, you can count on it. And that's no idle threat, pilgrims.